The weather in February wasn't pleasant. Something crazy was happening outside. A whirlwind was lifting snowflakes from the ground and spinning them upwards at an incredible speed. And the frost was accompanied by a cold wind. It was a real natural cataclysm. The young surgeon Michael struggled to warm up his car and then made his way home through the snowdrifts. He was exhausted, 3 complicated surgeries during the day, so he dreamed of only one thing: to lie down on the couch and relax. When he entered the house, shaking off the snow, his beloved daughter Valerie ran up to him, hugged him, and rejoiced. "Hurrah! Daddy's here. Did you bring me something delicious?" "Of course, my dear. I love you so much." "Daddy, did you see what the weather's like? It's blizzarding outside. Mrs. Winters and I didn't even go for a walk today. She said the wind would carry me away." The man thanked the helpful elderly neighbor who never refused to babysit Valerie. "Thank you, Mrs. Winters. You've helped me out again. I'm very grateful. I would send my daughter to kindergarten. It would be better for her. She could socialize with other kids, and she would have more fun. But due to my crazy irregular schedule, I'm afraid I won't be able to pick her up on time. And I can't drive her to my mom on the other side of the city every day. I realize it's not easy for you to babysit her every day. I would try to find a good nanny. I brought you your favorite cinnamon rolls, French bread, and groceries. Please take it. From the bottom of my heart." The elderly woman smiled. "I'm grateful to you too, Michael. You helped me a lot. I don't even have to go to the store. Valerie is a sweet girl. She's so smart, but she's too active. I can't keep up with her. And she's bored. She needs to socialize with other kids, not with an elderly neighbor. But if you need my help, just tell me. I'll babysit her. Well, I gotta go home. Good night." Michael and Valerie saw their neighbor off, had dinner, and relaxed on the sofa. Today's weather made Michael sad, and he decided to read a book to his daughter. The girl listened with attention. She liked it very much when her father read aloud to her. But suddenly, someone knocked on the window, and Valerie shuddered. Confused, Michael put on his jacket and went to open the door, thinking that it was Mrs. Winters who had forgotten something. But when he opened the door, he was shocked. Some woman was standing there. She looked more like a huge snowdrift and whispered, "Help, please." She began to fall into the snow. Michael didn't hesitate. He dragged her into the house and sat her down by the fireplace, where the blazing logs were crackling loudly. Valerie looked frightened at the stranger. That woman gradually warmed up and came to her senses. Finally, the poor woman uttered, "Help me, please. My name is Lizzie. My children and I live nearby. My son is sick. He has a fever, and he is delirious. I went to the pharmacy to get medicine. I left the children alone, but the snowstorm started. I couldn't work any further because my strength had left me, and I could only get to your window. I am exhausted. I feel that I am freezing. I'm sorry to bother you, but otherwise, I'd be freezing to death in a snowdrift." Michael introduced himself, brought a first aid kit, and found antipyretics and antibiotics, but said sternly, "I am a doctor, and there are plenty of medicines in the house, but I will not let you go alone in the snowstorm. I have a car. I'll drive you home." Then he turned to Valerie. "Sweetheart, I'll call Mrs. Winters. Will you stay with her for a little while? I'll drive Lizzie home, and I'll be right back." The girl agreed. She was used to the fact that her father could get a call at any time of the day or night and be summoned to the hospital. Michael dressed quickly and drove Lizzie home. The man was shocked at how poorly they lived. The house was shabby. The wind whistled through the old windows, and the doors needed to be repaired long ago. The children were fussing over a boy of about 5, touching his forehead and giving him a thermometer. Michael said hello, checked the kid's temperature, and shuddered. The temperature was too high. He promptly gave him a shot of antipyretic, and then looked at the kids and the woman one more time and said firmly, "Lizzie, get the kids dressed. I suggest you all stay at my house for a while. Your son needs serious treatment. Your house is cold, and there are no conditions, so you will never cure him. It's warm and comfortable at my house. Your son will recover faster there." The woman was surprised and felt very embarrassed. "Thank you, but I have to refuse. I'm so embarrassed. But I don't have any money at all to pay you to rent the room. After the death of my husband, I have no money at all. I have children, so I can't find a suitable job, and the allowance is only enough for food. Can you please just leave us the medicine and I'll treat Alex myself?" Michael frowned and replied, "Listen to me. I am a doctor, and I can see that your son needs not only medication, but normal living conditions, care, and long-term therapy. If you stay in this house, your son won't get better, but other children can get sick too. And I didn't tell you anything about money. You don't owe me anything. I just want to help." The woman got scared for the children's health and started packing their backpacks. The children were frightened and hid behind their mother, not understanding where this gloomy man was taking them. But Lizzie explained them. "Kids, we have to stay at the other house for a while. Melanie, Victoria, don't forget your textbooks and backpacks. We'll stay at the doctor's house for now, and when Alex gets better, we'll come home. I promise. Your brother is very sick. We have to help him get better." At the surgeon's house, Lizzie introduced everyone. The boys' names are Alex and David, and the girls' names are Victoria and Melanie. They're older. "What's your daughter's name?" Michael nodded and answered, "My daughter's name is Valerie. She's 5 years old. Unfortunately, she doesn't go to kindergarten, so we're happy to have a good company. Come on in, make yourselves comfortable. Come on, sunshine, be hospitable. Invite the kids to your room to play. They'll stay with us for a while because I need to treat their little brother." The girl understood everything, smiled, quickly started talking to the kids, and took them to her room. Soon, the kids relaxed a little and felt more comfortable in this strange and unfamiliar house. Michael examined Alex's lungs, frowned for a long time, gave 2 more shots and some medicine, and half an hour later the fever decreased, and the kid fell asleep. Lizzie exhaled. "Thank you so much. You saved my son's life, and you sheltered us. We didn't always live like this. I was married. Victoria and Melanie are not my biological daughters. They are my husband's children from his first marriage. His first wife abandoned them, and then I gave birth to my sons. Samuel was so happy. He worked so hard for the sake of the family. We planned to live in this house temporarily. We sold the apartment and invested all the money in the construction of a new big house. My husband dreamed of a big and cozy house, so that each of the children had their own room. But fate had a different plan. My husband worked as a construction foreman, often working outside in the cold. One day he caught a severe cold. I insisted that he go to the hospital, but he refused. He only took some pills and continued to go to work until things got really bad. An ambulance took him to the hospital, and it turned out that he had pneumonia. The doctors fought for his life, but he died. I still can't recover from the grief, and the children miss their dad. It's so hard for me to cope with them on my own. The company where my husband worked gave us some money for the funeral and paid some compensation, and we lived on this money all this time. But I have no money to buy a normal house or even a small apartment. To be honest, sometimes I want to scream from hopelessness. My friends advised me to send the girls to the orphanage because they are not my biological kids. But I don't even want to think about it. How can I betray them? I'm their mom. By the way, where's Valerie's mom? Are you divorced? Michael relaxed. For some reason, he trusted Lizzie and told her everything about his life, how he had lost his wife, how difficult it was for him. They had a lot in common. They had both experienced the death of loved ones. At the end of the conversation, Michael encouraged Lizzie. "Yeah, it's not easy for both of us. I understand you better than anyone else. It's great that you decided not to abandon your children. You're strong, and you'll cope with everything. And I'll help you. Tomorrow I have a day off, I'll show you the house. But now it's very late. It's time to go to bed. You can sleep on the sofa, and the children next to you on the second sofa and folding chair. Make yourselves comfortable. One more thing, I wanted to ask you to babysit Valerie while I'm in the hospital. I'd be very grateful. I'm not a millionaire, but we have enough money for a comfortable life. Don't worry about it. You can live here as long as you need. Lizzie almost cried and kept thanking this kind and helpful doctor. The work week had begun, and Michael was glad that Lizzie and her kids were now living in his house. Now he could go to work without having to ask Mrs. Winters to babysit his daughter. Lizzie was a wonderful mom who cooked delicious food, kept the house clean, and had time to take care of her kids and Valerie, feed everyone lunch, and make a hearty dinner. Valerie was also delighted. Now she had great company. It was almost like kindergarten, only at home. Sometimes there were quarrels between the children, but Lizzie knew how to solve everything wisely, without yelling and scandals. The kids obeyed her. Even the boys didn't get too mischievous. The children were well-mannered, and the older girls, coming from school, did their homework diligently. There was no need to scold them. Melanie was interested in medicine and was reading an encyclopedia. Every evening Michael and Lizzie chatted amicably, as if they had known each other since childhood. Once, when Michael was putting Valerie to bed, he began to unbraid her hair and noticed a surprisingly beautiful accessory in her hair, a rose, obviously made of a precious stone. He asked in surprise, "Valerie, where did you get such a hairpin?" "I asked Melanie to give it to me. Her mom gave it to her a long time ago." Michael wondered. He had seen that piece of jewelry not long ago. There could be no mistake. He decided to ask Lizzie about it, and she told him everything. "I've had this hairpin since I was a baby. I guess I got it from my parents. I'm not sure. I'm an orphan. I grew up in an orphanage, and I don't remember how I got there. Surprisingly, throughout all the years in the orphanage, no one stole it from me, and if I lost it, I always found it miraculously. I consider it my lucky mascot. So I decided to give it to Melanie. She asked for it, but she had already given it to Valerie." Michael reasoned aloud. "This is so strange. 6 months ago, I performed emergency surgery on a rich lady, and I saw the same piece of jewelry in her hair, exactly the same. But how is it possible if you don't know her and you've had the hairpin with you since birth? There is some mystery here." Lizzie perked up and asked, "Can't you find that lady and ask her where she got that hairpin? Maybe I can find out something about my family. All my life I've dreamed of finding any of my relatives. I'll do my best. It's not my mystery. But I wonder how you and that rich patient got the same piece of jewelry." The doctor didn't hesitate, and the next day he found the contact information of that lady. Her name was Emily. The surgeon waited for the day off and went to Emily's house. The patient's husband opened the door of the mansion. He was an unpleasant, rude man. "What do you want? We are not expecting visitors. Perhaps you are from an insurance agency. Get out. I will not give you a single dollar." Michael was shocked and said, "No, I'm not from the agency. I'm looking for Emily. I need to talk to her." Emily's husband got angry. "Who the hell are you? What are you gonna talk to my wife about?" Emily came out to the noise. Of course, she recognized the doctor and yelled at her husband, "John, what the hell is wrong with you? This is Michael, my attending physician. He performed surgery on me and saved my life." "Hello, Michael, please come in." "What happened?" Michael exhaled and immediately began with the main thing. "Emily, I have a strange question. While you were in the hospital, I noticed a beautiful hairpin in your hair, a rose. Where did you get it?" "I ask about it because recently I sheltered a woman, and she has exactly the same piece of jewelry. It can't be a coincidence." The woman was surprised. She certainly didn't expect such a question. "Yeah, a very strange question. I got this hairpin from my mom. I don't know anything else. My mom is currently undergoing treatment. Would you like me to call her?" If she's not too weak, we'll go to her together and you can talk to her. It's no problem for me. Emily talked to her mom for a few minutes and said she's waiting for us. When I mentioned the hairpin, she became so excited that even her voice changed. It trembled. Now I'm curious about what's wrong with this hairpin too. Let's go to my mom right now. In half an hour, they were already sitting at the headboard of the elderly woman's bed. She was breathing heavily and listening intensely to all the details. Michael decided to tell her everything as it happened. Heavy tears rolled down Madeline's cheeks. She was silent for a long time, and then she began to tell a long and very painful story of her life. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Yes, you're right, there are only 2 of these hairpins. It's handmade, and you can't find anything like this anywhere. It's pure high-quality gold and agate. Emily, darling, I'm going to tell you something that will probably shock you. I've kept this secret for many years, and I was sure I'd take it with me to the grave. You had a twin sister, your father, and I loved you so much. But one day, our happiness was ruined in an instant, and misfortune divided life into before and after. You and your sister were already 1 year old then. Your father and I had to go on an urgent business trip for a couple of days. We decided to take you to the village so that our relative could take care of you. Your father was on his way there, but on the way he got into a terrible accident. He died instantly. The paramedics pulled you out of the car, you survived, but your sister Emma disappeared without a trace. That's how I ended up a poor widow. I'm so happy that you survived. Otherwise I'd have gone mad with grief. Emily, I never dared to tell you about it. I'm so sorry. It feels like a painful wound in my heart. I blamed myself a million times for letting my husband go alone that day. I was thinking about my business, but I should have been thinking about my family. I wondered many times whether my daughter Emma was alive or not. I don't even know how to pray in church, for her health or for the repose of her soul. Emily was shocked. She whispered, "Mummy, darling, why did you keep silent for so many years? I can only imagine the weight of that guilt pressing down on you. Wow, I might have a sister somewhere. So, that woman with many children is my sister." Michael shook his head negatively. Things have gotten even more confusing. I don't understand anything at all now. You and Lizzie have the same hairpin, but she is definitely not your twin sister. No resemblance at all. Lizzie is an orphan. She was raised in an orphanage. I'm afraid I can't figure this out on my own. I should probably involve private detectives. Maybe we can find out something about Lizzie's parents, and that will help us. Madeline perked up. That's a good idea. Why didn't I come up with that myself in all these years? The police closed the case, but the detectives will definitely find something. Emily, please do it. I may not have much time left alive. What if I find out something about Emma before I die? Consider this my last will and testament. Please, hire the best detective you can find. Michael, thank you very much for not ignoring someone else's misfortune, and for finding me. There are very few such caring people now. The more Michael delved into Lizzie's mysterious story, the more he wanted to get to the truth and help the relatives reunite. He and Emily hired the best detectives and paid a lot of money for their services, and the detectives started to work enthusiastically. In just a week, they already achieved the first results. The detectives found an elderly nanny who had worked at the orphanage all her life and talked to her. The woman remembered only one detail, that someone left 1-year-old Lizzie near the orphanage in a handmade basket, the kind people often make for household needs. The clothes the girl was wearing were very cheap, but she had a very expensive hairpin in her hair, which is why the nanny still remembered that day. The staff at the orphanage back then were kind and decent. None of them stole that hairpin, but instead, they even helped Lizzie to keep it safe. There was no note in the basket, so nothing is known about her family. Michael listened carefully and suddenly realized something. Look, Madeline's husband got into a car accident just on the way to the village. Lizzie's basket could be from that village. Is there some kind of connection? Even though we don't understand it yet, I feel we're close to the answer. Detective Frank scratched the back of his head and said, "Well, in this case, I have only one suggestion. We need to go to every village in the district and ask the villagers if anyone remembers anything. Let's show them Emily's picture because her sister must look like her. After all, they are twins." Of course, it's not a quick and troublesome job, but at this point, we don't have any other options. The detectives immediately got to work. While Michael worked at the hospital, the detectives were traveling to the villages. And on a weekend, Michael and Emily decided to join the search as well. There was only one village left. The houses here were not rich, and there were many abandoned buildings. There were not many people in the village. The streets were empty. Finally, Michael noticed an old woman. She was shoveling snow off the road near the gate. They began to ask her questions. "Good afternoon. We're from the detective agency. We are looking for this woman. Please look at the photo." Grandma didn't even have time to look at the photo, but suddenly turned to Emily. "Hannah, is that you? Why are you working around the village with some stranger? When did you change your hairstyle? And where did you get such expensive clothes? What will your father say?" Emily didn't understand anything and blinked frequently, while Michael almost shouted, "Do you know a woman who looks like her? How can we find her? Where does she live? Don't be silent. Tell me, I beg you. It's very important." The old lady crossed herself and replied, "You are a copy of Hannah, the daughter of our forester, Stephen. They live on the outskirts of the village, almost in the forest. So, Stephen has another daughter." But Michael only said, "We don't know anything yet. Thank you. We'll go and find Hannah." They easily found the right house. There was smoke coming from the chimney, so the owners were at home, and that was good. An old man with a thick beard came to the door and shouted, "Who's there? Who are you looking for and what do you want?" "We're not expecting any visitors," Michael replied. "Hello. We're looking for your daughter. We have good news for her." The old man opened the wicket, looked at Michael, then looked at Emily and said, "How is that possible? You're a copy of Hannah. Come in. Let's find out who you are and what's going on." He led the guests into a bright room. The house was warm, even hot, and smelled of lavender. Some woman was fussing in the kitchen, humming a song. When she heard the noise, she came out to the guests. And she was Emily's copy. A beautiful young woman with long hair almost to her waist. She wanted to say hello, but when she looked at Emily, she backed up and fainted. A forester wanted to splash water on her, but Michael shouted, "I'm a doctor. Step aside and let me help her." He put the girl on the sofa and began to rub her cheeks and the tips of her ears. Hannah immediately came to her senses. Was it a dream, or did I really see myself? Oh my goodness, it wasn't a dream. Who are you? How is that possible? Michael was the first to speak again and suggested that everyone sit down and quietly listen to this long, complicated story. They all sat down, and he told them everything he knew about this case. The forester was silent the whole time, rubbing his beard and frowning his gray eyebrows. Hannah exclaimed, "So, Emily, are you my sister?" "Daddy. But how could that happen? I'm the only one in the family. There are no other children. I don't understand anything." The man sighed and began to tell a long story about his darkest secret, which he tried to hide from everyone all his life. "My wife Elizabeth and I lived together for many years. She helped me in everything. I loved her more than life. Everything was going well, except that we couldn't have children. We suffered a lot, especially Elizabeth. She still had hope. Sewed beautiful baby clothes, gave them to all her friends, and saved some for us too, believing that we would have a child someday. But time passed, and the miracle never happened. One day I went to the forest as usual, and then came out to the highway. My dog started barking loudly and ran into the bushes. I ran after him. I thought maybe some animal got into a trap. But no, There was a baby there. It was a girl, covered in abrasions and bruises. Her clothes were torn. Mosquitoes had attacked her. I wrapped the baby in my scarf and rushed home. Elizabeth was horrified when she saw the girl's condition. She bathed the girl and applied healing ointment to her wounds. Little by little, the girl came to her senses. I told my wife that we should go to the police, tell them everything. Maybe someone was looking for her. But Elizabeth started begging me, please don't go anywhere. Do you realize that this is a gift of fate? I will love her, raise her, and call her Hannah. I've been dreaming about this for so many years. Elizabeth was obsessed with the idea, and eventually, I agreed. I was ready to do anything for the sake of my beloved wife, and to be honest, I also didn't want to lose this baby girl. So, I made the necessary papers and told everyone that my wife gave birth at home. The neighbors were surprised. They asked, where did we get the baby? And I honestly answered, I found her near the forest. At first, everyone laughed and didn't believe it. But then they forgot about this story, and life went on as usual. Hannah grew up, studied well at school, and now she works as a cook in the local canteen. Plus we make bread at home and sell it for a modest price. Actually, it's time for her to get married, but there are no decent men in our village. Too bad Elizabeth will never see Hannah's wedding and our grandchildren. She died 3 years ago. That's the whole truth. Sweetheart, please don't be mad at me for not telling you the truth. You are the dearest person to me. You were, you are, and you will always be my dear daughter. Hannah sobbed. Emily too. And the sisters embraced for the first time, and both felt so warm, so good in their hearts. Then Hannah approached her father and snuggled up to him like a little girl. Daddy, I am not mad at all. On the contrary, I am proud of what you did, because you and Mom saved me from death, and you always loved me so sincerely. There is no reason for me to be angry, but I'm so happy that I found my sister. It's so wonderful to have someone close and dear to you on the planet. We can communicate and be friends, right? Emily kept sobbing too. She still couldn't believe everything that was happening and whispered, Hannah, sister, our mother is very sick. It was her wish that I find you. It's her last will. She wants to see you before she dies. I beg you, don't say no. I don't know how much time she has left, so I just want her last days to be filled with warmth and joy. She didn't even know if you were alive or dead, and she suffered a lot. I beg you, come with us. Also, I'll introduce you to my husband. Hannah looked questioningly at her father, as if seeking approval in his eyes, and he nodded. Go, my dear. She's your mom. You should meet her. It's the right thing to do. But don't forget about me, and come back soon. I haven't lived a day without you. I'll miss you very much. Michael looked at them, listened, rejoiced that the close people had found each other, but then suddenly exclaimed, I'm glad you found each other. But I still don't understand how the second hairpin ended up in Lizzie's hands. Can someone explain that to me? I mean, she had nothing to do with this whole story. Stephen shrugged. I don't know anything. When I found my daughter in the forest, she didn't have any jewelry on. Her hair was long and tangled, but no hairpins. Together they drove to the city. Hannah was fascinated by the sparkling window displays, skyscrapers, and shopping centers, and marveled, for she had never been outside her village. Michael watched her, smiled, and admired Hannah. She was naive, trusting, and sincere. They had only known each other for a day, but Michael felt like he had known her all his life, and he couldn't take his eyes off her. Suddenly, he suggested, Hannah, why don't you come to my house for dinner tonight? I'll introduce you to my daughter, Valerie, and Lizzie and her kids. Now it's always noisy in my house, but it's fun. Will you come? The girl smiled, blushed, and muttered, Thank you. I will come. I love children very much. Emily introduced her sister to her husband. He was surprised and couldn't believe that such a thing could happen. But Hannah didn't like him. The man stared at her too intently, as if he was evaluating her, and kept winking when Emily didn't see it. It was so unpleasant that Hannah decided not to stay in that house, just in case. She only spent the night at her sister's house, and they talked all night long. They obviously had a lot to tell each other. Emily insisted, "Hannah, you should move to the city. There are so many opportunities here. You can create the life of your dreams. I'll help you to get a job in a restaurant since you like to cook. You'll earn good money, and we'll find you a rich fiancé. You're so beautiful. You deserve the best." But Hannah hesitated. "Thank you, sister. I'll think about it. But I won't leave my father now. He's old and often ill. Besides, how will the villagers live without me? I deliver them hot bread early in the morning. But thanks for the offer. If I change my mind, I'll tell you right away." The next day, the sisters went to see their mother. It was a very emotional meeting. When they entered, Madeline was lying in bed with an foredrip. Her exhausted face, tormented by a long illness, expressed total hopelessness. But when she saw the twins, she immediately came to her senses, cheered up, her eyes brightened, and the woman whispered, "My girls, my daughters, Emma, I can't believe my eyes. I've been longing so much all these years. I'm so happy you've come. Emily, dear, thank you. Oh, I'm so happy." Hannah looked embarrassed. "My name is not Emma, it's Hannah. But I'm happy to see you too, Mommy. It's so weird, all my life I've called another woman my mom. But it turned out that my mom is you. I still can't believe it. What's your disease? Is there anything I can do to help?" Madeline had another attack again. Emily grabbed the oxygen mask and handed it to her mother. She started breathing heavily and coughing. After coming to her senses a little, she replied, "Thank you, my dear. Thank you that you care. But no one can help me anymore. I have severe asthma. The attacks are becoming more frequent. I am suffocating, and I can no longer live without a mask. The doctors can't do anything. Nothing helps, and this disease will kill me someday." Hannah thought for a moment, and then said quietly, "I'll talk to my dad. My mom was a healer. She's been treating our neighbors all her life. Daddy knows a lot of things too. Anyway, it's worth a try." Madeline grinned sadly. "I'll be grateful for any help. I've got nothing left to lose anyway." Hannah called her father the same day. She talked to him for a long time about something, asked him many questions, and told him about the diagnosis. Then she came back to the hospital and told Madeline, "Mom, I had a conversation with Dad. He says you should come to our village. The air there is special, therapeutic. He'll try to cure you. So, will you go?" Emily got frightened and protested. "Are you out of your mind? What village are you talking about? Mom can't survive even an hour without a mask. What if she gets worse there? Then what? No, I'm not letting her go anywhere." Hannah sighed, but didn't argue, then decided to visit Michael. And after that, she wanted to go home. Michael was happy that the whole noisy family could finally meet their guest. The children shouted with joy. Everyone tried to say something, and Hannah laughed. She felt calm and cozy in this house. She could be herself and relax. They had a delicious dinner and then talked, played, and drew something. Hannah quickly made friends with the kids. Michael liked this girl very much. He couldn't stop looking at her. She was special, as if she was from another planet. Her natural beauty attracted him very much. This had never happened to him since his wife's death. He wanted to hold her close to him, to hug her tightly, to protect her from all the troubles, and not to let her go anywhere. When the kids went to bed, Hannah, Michael, and Lizzie chatted about life. Hannah said that Daddy advised Madeline to go to the village, but Emily refused. Michael thought about it and then replied, "Your father is right, a change of climate, and even just clean forest air can help a lot. I will try to persuade her. As a doctor, you have to try. Madeline can always go back to the city." Lizzie added sadly, "Well, everyone is happy. You and your sister have found each other, but I remained an orphan. who brought me to the orphanage in a basket. Where are my parents? Michael took Lizzie's hand and tried to cheer her up in a friendly way. Don't be discouraged. I have some more ideas. We'll keep looking for your relatives. You have to believe. Lizzie immediately smiled. You're so wonderful, Michael. I've never met people like you. You sheltered me and my children, and you helped Hannah and Emily reunite. Thank you so much for your good deeds. Michael had a long conversation with Madeline and finally talked her into the trip. But they decided to take the mask with them, just to be on the safe side. He took a 1-week vacation and accompanied her, taking Valerie with him. He wanted to personally monitor Madeline's condition. The forester was already waiting for everyone. The next day, he took Madeline for a walk in the forest. The woman was still very weak, struggling to work, and the forester told her, "Don't think about your disease now. You should better look around and breathe deeply. Just look at this wild beauty. Listen to this silence, only the snow crunching under your feet. It's magnificent. And the sky is so vast and blue. Urban people are always running somewhere, getting nervous. But sometimes you need to stop. After all, our body is not a robot, and sometimes it breaks down." Madeline didn't even notice that she had been working with pleasure for more than an hour. She didn't need the mask. There were no attacks, and her strength came from somewhere. It was a miracle. Michael, Hannah, and Valerie were making a huge snowman, laughing out loud. The three of them were having such a good time, as if they were a real family. But the man remembered about Lizzie's problem and decided to visit the local policeman. He told the whole confusing story and then asked who could have left a 1-year-old girl outside the orphanage. Maybe some of the local residents. Well, there must be a clue to this story. The policeman thought for a long time and then suddenly realized, I have only one guess. There was a family in the neighboring village. A mother, a father, and a daughter. Nothing special. Except that I remember that their daughter got married unluckily, and she gave birth to a girl. Her husband and mother-in-law accused the girl of adultery, and after the baby was born, they kicked her out of the house. She wanted to come back to her parents, but her father said that she disgraced the family and kicked her out too. The girl left the village with her little daughter, and no one saw her again. I don't know if this will help you or not, but I don't remember any other similar stories. Michael asked, what was the name of this girl and her daughter? The policeman replied, the girl's name was Susan, but I don't remember anything about her daughter. Michael suddenly realized his mother's name is also Susan. Was that a coincidence? She had never said anything about her family, and Michael had no grandparents on her side. And in general, his mother had always been very secretive, hiding papers from everyone. He hurriedly said goodbye to the policeman and went back to the forester's house. There Hannah was mixing dough, while Valerie and Madeline were making cookies. Valerie was covered with flour, but she was so happy. Hannah's mom didn't look so sick anymore. Michael asked her, Madeline, I can see you're getting better, and you don't even need the mask anymore. The woman nodded. I really didn't believe it was possible. You saw that I was dying. I was suffocating. But here I can work, I can breathe, and I feel so alive. I didn't realize how nice it is to live in a village, closer to nature. I always thought only beggars and losers lived in villages. I chased success but forgot about my health, and I ended up getting asthma. Thanks to my daughter and Stephen, they got me out of that hospital. They made me look at life in a different way. I will definitely move here. Hannah rejoiced, and Stephen said, my daughter and I would be happy if you really did move here. Well, let's have dinner. This house has never had so many guests before. Michael left Valerie in the village and went to the city. He needed to talk to his mom and find out what was going on. Mom was very happy to see her son. She hugged him and began to set the table. At first, they talked about life, about Mom's health. Michael hesitated and didn't know how to start this difficult conversation. However, the woman could already see that her son was nervous and she asked, "Michael, what's wrong? Did something happen to Valerie? Tell me the truth." Michael exhaled and began, "Don't worry, Mom, Valerie is fine. She's in the village with my friends. I'm going to tell you a story about a woman named Lizzie, an orphan from the orphanage. Please listen carefully. And I really hope to hear the truth from you too, whatever it may be." He told the whole story. His mother turned pale. Her hands were shaking. Michael realized that his mother was also involved in this tangled story. Finally, she confessed, "I've kept this secret all my life. I didn't want anyone to know about the terrible sin of my youth. I could never have imagined that you would be the one to reveal this dirty secret. I'm so guilty. I guess the time has come for me to pay for what I've done. Before I met your dad, I was really married and lived in a village. But I made a mistake in choosing a husband. He beat me, was jealous, and my mother-in-law hated me. Soon I got pregnant. I thought that my torment would finally stop. But no. After my daughter was born, it got even worse. My mother-in-law convinced my husband that our daughter didn't look like any of them, and that I cheated on him. My husband constantly beat me for this. When my daughter turned 1 year old, they kicked me out of the house. His mother found another wife for him. Where was I supposed to go? Obviously, to my parents. I hoped that they would understand me, but my father yelled at me and told me to go back to my husband, to beg for forgiveness. I was on the verge of madness. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I wasn't going back to my husband otherwise. He'd kill both me and the baby. My daughter cried all the time. She was hungry. I had nowhere to go and nothing to feed the baby. So, I broke down. I left my daughter at the gate of the orphanage and ran away. My heart was torn to pieces. I wandered around for a while and slept at the train station. There I met a woman. I didn't tell her anything about the baby. She sheltered me and gave me a job. And then I met your dad. We started dating and fell in love. Then you were born. Your father was so happy that he had a son. He loved you until his last breath. You know that." Michael was shocked. He almost shouted, "What about your baby? What about your daughter and my sister? Why didn't you tell Daddy and take her out of the orphanage? How could you do that, Mom? She wasn't happy there. She was suffering, while we were living happily. Is that fair?" He clutched his head and couldn't believe it. His mom suddenly cried quietly, wiping her tears and whispering, "You are right, son. I abandoned my baby, and there is no forgiveness for me. But I was afraid. Do you understand? I loved your father madly, and I was afraid of losing him. How could I tell him about such a horrible thing? How could I confess that I had abandoned my baby, that I'm a heartless monster? He wouldn't forgive me, and he'd leave me. And then what? I was a terrible mother to my daughter, but I was a good mother to you. You have no reason to blame me. Do you think I've forgotten about it and lived peacefully all these years? I suffered all these years. I thought about her every day, and I prayed. You know, now that I've told you all this, I even feel a little better. I'd really like to meet my girl and apologize. I found that hairpin on the street and left it as a memory for my daughter." Michael could not come to his senses. He was mad at his mother and ran away from her house. He couldn't wait to tell Lizzie everything. When he got home, Lizzie was in the kitchen making dinner and the kids were playing. He looked around and shouted, "Hey everybody, I've got great news. Lizzie, come here and listen. I've solved the mystery of your hairpin. It turned out that you are my biological sister, and your children are my nephews." Lizzie was crying. She couldn't believe it and kept asking, "So your mom is my mom, and she's alive, and I'm finally going to see her. Oh my goodness. You have no idea how much I've dreamed about this all these years. How much I've prayed for this." Michael was shocked and asked her, "Do you realize that she abandoned you? She's the reason you suffered in the orphanage. Don't you feel offended? Even I didn't know anything about it. And neither did Daddy. I'm so mad at her. She's crying now, saying she wants to see you. I'm ashamed of her, sister. But Lizzie replied indignantly, no, don't talk about her like that. Please don't. I'm not mad at her at all. If your mother raised you, such a wonderful person, then she's not horrible at all. I was mad at her when I was a kid, but not anymore. I'm a mom myself, and I know how hard life can be. She made a mistake, but that was years ago, and now she's remorseful. And you know, it doesn't matter now. The main thing is that I can finally meet her and hug her. Thank you, Michael. I've always dreamed of having a brother like you. Don't be mad at Mom. She will pay for her sins, and we have no right to judge her. When can I see her? I can't wait. I'm even a little scared. I wonder what she's like. Do I look like her? Michael hugged his sister and said, you know, Lizzie, when I first saw you, I knew we had a lot in common. My heart told me what to do, and fate brought you to my house. You could have knocked on the neighbor's house, but you came to me. The meeting between mother and daughter was very emotional. Lizzie cried, hugged the old woman, and stroked her slouching shoulders. Mom, I've dreamed of saying those words all my life. Remember that I'm not mad at you. I'm not cursing you, and I'm happy we met. The elderly woman also cried and apologized. Forgive me, my dear. All these years I've been cursing myself for this sin. I am so guilty. But now that we've met, I really want to communicate with you, if you don't mind, and I really want to meet your children. Michael told me that I have 4 grandchildren. I'd love to meet them if you'd let me. You are a better and wiser woman and mother than I am, and I am proud to have such a wonderful daughter. Michael began to visit the village often. He and Hannah were very attracted to each other, and soon they both realized that they were in love. But the woman refused to move to the city. She loved her house, and she was happy there. She was doing what she loved and enjoyed it. Michael thought for a long time and came up with a decision. He left his house for his sister and her children and moved to the village with Valerie. Stephen welcomed him warmly. He was happy that his daughter was marrying a decent man. It wasn't too far from the city, and Michael could drive to work every day. But Valerie liked it here very much. Hannah was happy too. She thanked Michael. Darling, thank you for moving here. I couldn't believe it. You're not used to living in a village. I thought you wouldn't agree. Michael hugged his fiancée, kissed her tenderly, and replied, I love you. And for me, the most important thing is to make you happy. I saw how uncomfortable it is for you in the city. Besides, it's strange, but I like it here. And I'm not worried about my sister now. Hannah clung tighter to her lover. You know, I thought I was going to die alone. Many men liked me, but I didn't like them. And my father kept saying, it's not your happiness. Let it go. Apparently, my dad knew better than me that my real happiness was ahead of me. You are my happiness. You and Valerie. Michael winked. But I wouldn't mind raising a boy too. As strong as Daddy, as wise as Grandpa, and as kind as Mommy. What do you think about it? It's hard to believe, but a beautiful piece of jewelry in a child's hair has changed the fates and brought happiness to so many people. It's a real miracle.